A very good morning to everyone who's watching MTV Sports at the moment. You're watching Good Morning Sri Lanka on the 10th of January 2013, where, nearing the end of this week as well, and hope it's been a good one for you. Now, here, if you've just seen, I have a book with me titled Religion and Identity, and later on in the show, I'm going to have a chat with the author of the book, who is not really a guest to the studio because he has been there before as well. But before that, taking a look at some of the stories that's been happening, in the past week, this week rather. One of the things that we couldn't mention on yesterday's show was that the 4th death anniversary of Australian journalist Lasantha Wickramatunge was commemorated on Tuesday with a simple candlelighting ceremony in front of the Vihar Mahadevi Park. Now, Lasantha was also a host of Good Morning Sri Lanka at the initial stages, and it's been 4 years since his death, and actually it's something that's saddening to see that still the perpetrators haven't been brought to justice. So it was commemorated on Tuesday with a very simple ceremony where a lot of journalists and other people in the media attended this ceremony as well. Also, some bad news, I would say. Very unfortunate incident in Saudi Arabia. A Sri Lankan housemaid, now you must have heard this all over the news, yesterday was executed in Saudi Arabia. Rizana Nafiq. I mean, this story was developing over the course of the last several months, where even the President Mahinda Rajapaksa also wrote to the Saudi king asking for an apology. But unfortunately, it has been carried out, the execution that was yesterday as well. I'm sorry to, make your morning a bit dull, but those are some of the news items that's been happening over the past week as well. Now, we're going to bring you a lot of new stuff on the show of Good Morning Sri Lanka starting from today, and also just a reminder that MTV Sports is going to celebrate its first year anniversary. That's on the 26th of Jan. So, we'll have some nice programs lined up for you for that as well. This is the first story that we're going to take a look at this morning. It's about a story of an Australian Aboriginal artist called Albert Namaditra. I hope I've got the name right. But he has, made famous 2 gum trees, which apparently was shortlisted or tipped off to be a national heritage site. And unfortunately for him and for, the Australians living in that area as well, they have been burnt down. So let's take a look at what that story is all about.
Australia's outback made famous in watercolours by Aboriginal artist Albert Namadgira have been burnt in a suspected arson attack shortly before they were due to be placed on a National Heritage Register, local media reported on Friday. Namadgira is credited with bringing the native trees featured in Aboriginal Dreamtime stories to wider public consciousness as a symbol of Australian identity. Northern Territory Indigenous Advancement Minister Alison Anderson said the pair of gum trees known as ghost gums that framed the West McDonnell Ranges and feature in many of the late Namadgira works were found burnt to the ground a few days ago.
I think it's the saddest day in the Territory's history.
Authorities believe the fire was likely to have been deliberate. Susan McCulloch, author of Encyclopedia of Australian Art, told the Sydney Morning Herald newspaper the destruction of the ghost gums was appalling and a tragic act of cultural vandalism.
It's really, really sad, and it's the 2 trees that brought this man to prominence and brought the Northern Territory and Central Australia to prominence and put us on the world map.
That is definitely not such a nice thing to do. As she mentioned, towards the latter part of the video, that is a cultural symbol, and it's something that was very important for that artist, and that is what was, actually the career highlight of that artist. And just before it was going to be placed on a National Heritage Register, that's definitely something that is very saddening for the people around that area as well. Now, we were talking about some news items earlier on, talking a bit about sports, courtesy of thePapare.com. The Inter-School Cricket League is in full flow, and this past week we saw several matches being battled out, namely Thurston taking on St. Sebastian's, Royal taking on Nalanda, Dharmashoka taking on Ananda, and also St. Peter's taking on St. Sylvester's. And we'll have those results coming your way as well. But going on the note of cricket, tomorrow is the first ODI between Sri Lanka and Australia, and I'm sure that everyone in Sri Lanka is hoping that we will definitely make up for not so satisfactory performance in the Test series and try and make amends with probably some good strategic approaches to the ODI. As we know, in the ODI we do in the ODI side of the game, we do have a slight bit of an advantage over Australia because we have a strong and developing batting lineup as well. So, let's just hope that, that goes in our favor as well. And in the football world, of course, this one also you've been hearing a lot on the news probably. Leo Messi, once again, the fourth time, he walks away with the Player of the Year award. And I guess, I don't know, there's a bit of a controversy, but it's based on voting. So I guess at the end of the day, most amount of people think that he is the best player. Of course, a skillful player, but I don't know, some people say that probably a Spanish player could have taken this title this year, but that's how it goes. Now, after the break, we're going to take a short break and be back soon, but after the break, I'm going to introduce you to the guest, as I mentioned earlier, the author of the book, Religion and Identity, and we're going to have a very interesting chat with him. So don't go anywhere, stay tuned to Good Morning Sri Lanka. Welcome back to Good Morning Sri Lanka. Religion and Identity. This is the topic of the book that I mentioned to you earlier. And in the studio we have the author of this book. Very good morning to Reverend Kirti Sri Fernando.
Good morning, Mevan.
Yes, and he's, as I mentioned earlier, a couple of months back we were talking a bit about the same kind of topics about the sociological approach to religion as well. Now, Father, I'd just like to start off with the whole, if you'd like to explain the whole issue of religion and identity and how people identify themselves with their religion and their ethnicity. And what really made you realize this and what made you highlight this issue?
Yeah, especially in this postmodern era. That as you know, many countries at colonial era, then post-colonial, then modern. We are in the postmodern era. We are supposed to be in the postmodern era. Now here we see that if you look around, in many countries you get issues related to religion and ethnicity, not religion or ethnicity. That people have been doing research on that ethnicity, especially in the academic fields of sociology and anthropology, and also in the field of theology and missiology and ecclesiology, they have been studying religion. But now there's a necessity to study these two things together, because now that all over the world, these two things are creating identities for people, which are very effective now that in the context.
Yes, and also the subheading of this book is Comparing Sinhala Buddhists and Christians in and around London. So I believe that your research area was London. So you'd just like to mention what were some of the main learnings from your research?
Yeah, that's right. That London is a very cosmopolitan city. Maybe the most cosmopolitan city. I think they speak about 400 odd languages, I think. Yeah, you'll be surprised to hear. And know that London is like a kind of a cosmos, no? You get, because that was the hub of past colonial era, the British Empire. And then there you get many ethnicities and religions, living together. And here that because of that up to certain extent sentimental reason, I did my research on Sinhala Buddhists and Christian immigrants in London. I was that encouraged to do research on Muslims.
Right, okay.
But I thought that I must do something for my country. I got a scholarship from the the foundation. That's how I did the research. And here that I want to do research on this particular ethnic group. Then I chose that for obvious reasons that Sinhala ethnic group. And they belong to two religions, two world religions, Buddhism and Christianity. Then how do they behave in their host country when they have the shifting identities? That was the main emphasis. And also that that how they settle, various modes of settlements, whether they settle that personally or individually or ethnically. That I did my research on those lines.
Right, and also going on the same tone, now I know that obviously you are an Anglican priest, but you have a wide knowledge of Buddhism and other contemporary religions as well. Right. Talking about Buddhism and the rest of the world, mostly, especially in places like the UK and the United States, we have Buddhist temples which were originally started by Sri Lankans.
That's right, yeah.
So if you just like to mention some of your experiences in visiting these places.
That's right. If you look at the the third chapter, you get that record of these temples. There are 5 Sri Lankan Buddhist temples in London.
Yeah.
And that the very first one was started by Sri Lankan people and also British expatriates who worked in Sri Lanka. I mean, that it goes back to latter part of the 19th century. Then when Anagarika Dharmapala went to Chicago to attend, the Parliament of World Religions, he came to England and met this famous man called Edwin Arnold, who was the editor of Telegraph at that time. That was, I think, in 1893.
Okay.
Now, this particular person was responsible in introducing that Buddhism to British public. He wrote a long Victorian poem called Light of Asia.
Okay.
That's how people got to know Buddhism. And that meeting was very interesting. Anagarika Dharmapala was interested in preaching Dhamma. At that time there was interest, especially with the work of Theosophical Society. They were interested in Oriental religions. Therefore, that very rich lady called Mary Foster agreed to fund it, and in 1926 they started this that in Ealing, place called Ealing, that Ealing House to study Buddhism. That was more on philosophical lines. That's how they started. That they had this interest in Buddhism, especially as a rational religion. Yeah, not so much on that rituals and ceremonies, but the philosophical side of Buddhism. Yeah.
Yes, and also one of the things when we analyze these type of things is that colonial influences have really been one of the main key aspects in the spread of religion all over the world.
That's right.
And if you like to mention some of the key features of how colonialism has helped in not just converting people, but also how it has given some qualities of their own culture to the culture that they've adopted.
That's right. Now that's very interesting, Mevan. That's a very interesting topic. I mean, we don't discuss this very much. Now, almost all the colonial powers, whether it is Portuguese or Dutch or British or Spanish, they used that their religion as a philosophy. I mean, that to rule the countries. Now, if you take Portuguese people, they use Roman Catholicism. Dutch people, Dutch Reformed Church. Then British people, of course, use many denominations. And also they use their ethnicity. That coupled with their language. I mean, that's how they portrayed themselves as superior people. I mean,
in the process of colonization.
Colonization, yeah. I know that it is not so much that related to the religious leader. It was not from Jesus Christ or Lord Buddha or Muhammad. I mean, this was that their philosophy.
Okay.
Then they gave that idea they are superior. And they know that, interestingly, I mean, I have a background of that applied science, and because I did engineering before I became a priest.
Okay.
So I may be bringing in some of these things. Now that Newton's third law, every action has equal and opposite reactions. No?
Yeah.
And they know in the independence struggles, that local people also use the same thing. They use their religion and ethnicity to gain independence.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because probably my next thought was, how they united, despite their religious and ethnical, differences. In the independence struggle, we saw that people came together, especially in the Sri Lankan context as well.
That's right. Superficial level, they came together. Now, that common enemy theory, because British Empire was their common enemy,
Yeah.
But after independence, you see, that certain identities are emerging more than the other identities, because now certain identities were integrally connected to colonial identity.
Right.
Yeah. Therefore, that superficial level, that they came together. But later you see these problems coming up. Now still we are experiencing these issues. No?
Exactly.
Yeah.
A super